Hello and welcome to the No Easy Way Out podcast. My name is Tony Nash, and we are coming to you as always from the Armory in beautiful downtown Owasso, Michigan, home to my company AZ Business Solutions, where we help grow your brand from A to Z. Now I'm joined today by a longtime mentor and friend, Dr. Douglas Levesque. Dr. Levesque, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tony. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. Now this is our season finale. We saved the best for last.
Right.
And Dr. Levesque actually, at 15 years old, became my pastor. And then really became my first big boy job boss. I was his youth pastor for a while, and then his associate pastor, one of his associate pastors. And really over that time became a mentor, somebody who I looked up to very much, not only in my spiritual life, but in my personal life. Kind of really taught me about being a leader, being a good man, being a man of God. And I've learned a tremendous amount from. And now today, not my boss and I, but really we've become good friends and share a lot of things in common and always have fantastic conversation. So I'm really excited to have you on the show today and really excited to introduce you to our audience.
Yeah, Tony, this is awesome. I mean, knowing you from a gangly teenager to
Very gangly.
a business owner and really successful business owner is, you know, one of the prides of my life to see you become a husband and a father, and now I'm learning from you. You have become the master, and so
Last time we met, I was but a learner. Well, you know, I would just say that I have certainly, they say a father hears his father, or a son, a man when he becomes a father hears his own father's voice when he's dealing with his children. Right. And certainly when I'm working with my employees, I hear Dr. Levesque's voice in my head, like, I know where I heard that or where I learned that. And there's a term in the Bible called, where we learn about the father in the ministry. Yeah. And certainly I have a ministry heart and still am very involved in ministry and would consider you my father in the ministry.
And really, you know, if you're going to do ministry well, you're going to do business well, because in the 21st century, as we do ministry, it's very entrepreneurial.
For sure.
And it's customer service.
Yeah.
It's a volunteer organization, but you are dealing with funds. You can't do ministry without funds. And so there's a lot of parallels. In fact, you know, I think modern American business success has some scriptural foundations and principles in it. So
no question
very
about
much
that.
Overlaps with what we're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, a lot of times I've had people ask me about secrets to success or things that I've done incorporated to get where I'm. And every single business principle that I've adopted that has made me good and have some success certainly is found in the Bible. Yeah. They're all biblical principles and certainly is a foundation of who we are here and who I am. So, well, why don't you tell our audience a little bit of what Dr. Levesque is up to recently? What are you doing these days?
Well, I'm the pastor emeritus at Emmanuel Baptist Church, and we're trying to figure out what that means because there's really not a scripture and verse for that. It's basically, you know, the old guy that's respected and loved, and so we're joking that pastor emeritus means come in at 10 and leave at 11.
Yes, the dream.
And the dream job where you get to do whatever you want. And I'm just kind of now an export arm of the church. So the church has, doubled down and tripled down on its ministry. It's not just local; it's regional and national and international. So I do a lot of traveling. And today I'm working with an international ministry organization out of Toronto. We had to sell some assets and distribute some funds for international, Bible translation and printing. Mm-hmm. I'd have never got to do that if I was just the pastor. And so being the pastor emeritus, I get to be an export with that. Yeah. I never was able to write. Now I'm working on my 6th book.
Yes.
And so that's probably my favorite thing to do. It's harder than what I thought, but it's really rewarding. And because it really expands, helping other people in the ministry.
And it gives you a legacy.
Yeah, it gives you a legacy.
Most people's books are much more valuable post-mortem. Yeah. People remember what you said. And absolutely.
And so then I get a lot more opportunity to travel and speak in colleges and camps and conferences. I've done a lot of that lately. And Bible Nation isn't really a political organization. It's a cultural organization. But because of that, we get engaged in political issues sometimes.
Right.
So we recently just put on the Lansing Rally. The MichiganFreeSpeech.com. We made some speeches about religious liberty in the state of Michigan and what's under threat, and so that was that was a big rally and rainy day, but it went off well.
It was a fantastic event. We were able to attend, and I just got to say that, and I know I've told you this personally, but if you haven't seen it, you can look it up on MichiganFreeSpeech.com, or you can look at Religious Liberty Facebook page. but your words were fantastic. And I appreciate the courage that it took to get up there and really just say, I'm going to stand on the right side of this issue, unashamedly, unapologetically, not in a mean, spiteful way, but just in a manly, biblical way. Like this is what we are and who we are.
It used to be really that, every person in every level of culture in our country kind of knew biblical precedent or Christian morality or something like that. And as we get more and more in modernity, honestly, that has to be taught more, I think. It has to be just said. And the perspective, if said right, usually even people from the other side say, you know what, I never heard it that way before. And they get a perspective, and again, you're helping them win.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you mentioned the Bible Nation Society. Your current title, I believe, is Executive Director of the Bible Nation Society. The organization was kind of your brainchild, 15 years ago now? So tell our audience what the Bible Nation Society is and what they do.
So when we started to kind of be involved in some political issues, we realized that the elected officials themselves usually aren't the ones that are bringing the platform or AKA the thought, the foundational principles. They're usually personalities, that can get elected.
Figureheads.
And I realized that most of the thought was coming from what we call think tanks, things like the Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institute, the American Enterprise Institute. I mean, there's a bunch of them left and right and middle. And they're all valuable, I think, left and right coming in, from American culture. But I realized that, biblical Christians, we have churches and we have maybe some colleges and some camps and things, but we didn't have an institution that was functioning as a think tank. That is, taking the issue of the day, finding scriptural backing for it, and then, disseminating it into the ethereal, out into the thought, without it being a sermon.
Right.
And I call it reverse sermonizing. In other words, we don't start with the text, we start with the issue, and we kind of work backwards maybe into the text to let people know where we're coming from. And we used to be the Christian majority. I think that's questionable. We might be coming, the Christian minority even. So we have to do a better job at articulating in the public square where our philosophies come from, what our thought is.
Right, and even the term Christianity has been so dissolved over the years that it doesn't mean what it used to mean, and it's really kind of more identified just with religion in general, and so it gets its own kind of followers and haters at the same time.
And really, we used to be a Bible Nation society, and there are other nations that actually could have been called that. Any nation can follow a certain set of principles and really be a Bible nation. And so sometimes even what I say non-believers, non-Christians, they can benefit from Christian thought. Our forefathers weren't all believers, but they all benefited from Christian thought and made up modern America, not just in the politics, but actually in our business acumen. The way that people think about doing business in America came from our forefathers, saved, Christian and unsaved, non-Christian, and using biblical principles. And so, you could tie almost every single business vocabulary or principle to a scriptural process. And so the rest of the world, say the Eastern world or maybe the communistic world or other cultural realms, they don't do business the same way. They just don't think the same way. And their thought comes from a different place. It's usually more self-interested. And so American business succeeded because it was customer first, or it was community first, and it wasn't just a self-interested. Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith always talks about the unseen hand and how self-interest is important to capitalism. But he really grew up 1776 was when that was written, amongst that biblical heritage. And so he knew what that meant, and he wasn't talking about satanic self-interest. He was talking about community interest, and so that's why those capitalistic principles worked.
Absolutely, and those men, just the founding fathers, having even a general biblical literacy, it affected the way that they thought. It affected the way they did business. It affected the way they wrote policy. And so, for someone to deny that we're at least founded on Christian principles certainly hasn't done their research, because you can see all through it that everything that they said and did were based on a foundation that they understood that the Bible was the good book, and there were some good things in it, whether you aspired to the whole thing or not. There's some good stuff in there that really affected their... Even what they would say the least Christian, Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin,
were filled with Bible speak. In other words, it was in their mind, it was in their culture. They understood that that's the world they were living. They understood how special and unique it was, and how well it worked. And so there's plenty of on-record statements by those two guys who may have been agnostic or something regarding the Christian principles and life of Americans.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Bible Nation Society actually has a unique tie to AZ Business Solutions in that really my introduction to graphic design was when Dr. Levesque, as my boss, said, hey, we want to do a magazine. And so I signed you up for this 2-day Adobe Photoshop class. Go learn and come back and build a magazine. And, of course, that was certainly an intimidating process. But we got through it. We published 6 or 7 episodes, had some really fantastic response from that. Yeah. And then really even were involved in influencing a much larger organization with a bigger budget to kind of produce a similar thing. And it's still being disseminated.
Yeah. And so, we've done, in the community here in Shiawassee County, we do what everybody knows is the newspaper. Yeah. And, that came from the magazine. Yeah. The magazine went nationwide. Right. And then, when the economy tanked and some of our grant funds worked out, we had to kind of find another avenue. So, of course, we are on the internet and then using the newspaper and then other media means. Video media means. So, we were pretty innovative back when everything started. And then you dove in, not just kind of as a minister, but then also as the tech advisor and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so that's kind of what you're doing. This is almost, it's your business and your ministry.
That's how I learned a lot of the stuff that I'm doing was through being involved with the Bible Nation as well as Emmanuel Baptist Church. We just had to learn. Yeah. We didn't have a web designer on staff or a graphic designer, and so we learned these things.
Well, and of course, everybody calls me from all over the country, international things, and so we're putting on all kinds of events. And I call AZ and I call Tony and his staff and say, all right, I need a little help here. Yeah. And you guys are always there to plug us in. And
we're happy to do it. We're happy to do it. Well, I want to give our audience, for those who don't know who you are, I want to give our audience a chance to get to know you. So we have a little personality profile. Okay. We do this or that. So I'm going to give you 10 things that are common this or that things. Okay. And let's know what Dr. Levesque aspires to. So are you ready for this?
Let's do it.
All right. Apple or Android?
Polaroid. No, I'm Android, but I'm old school too.
Yeah, you just recently went from the flip phone, right?
Yeah, I got a smartphone. Yeah. Yeah, and that was just to get grandchildren pictures.
That's it. Night owl or early bird?
I'm getting older, and so I wake up at 5 no matter what. I still like to stay up late. Right. So I'm kind of in transition, I think, there.
Yeah, sleep can happen later, right? Yeah. Countryside or city slicker?
Countryside. I'll spend all day outside if I can.
Steak or chicken?
Man, so many good chicken choices, but it just doesn't top steak.
No. A red meat man. Yeah. Do you prefer a phone call or a text?
Probably a phone call.
Yeah. You can get a lot accomplished on a phone call, and texting sometimes takes, the back and forth is like a 45-minute thing that could have been handled in a 5-minute conversation.
Yes, and then, spell check, autocorrect.
Or tone.
Yeah, absolutely. No, a lot of the conversations I'm having need to be voice inflection or even like let's get together, but still.
Yeah, absolutely. Good movie or a good book?
Book is always better than the movie. Yeah. Book is always better than the movie. Every book I've ever read of a movie, book is better than the movie. So it's more imaginative.
That's what I say. That's what I hear people say. But how is that possible? a book doesn't have sound or pictures. Like I'm very simplistic.
Yeah, something like Star Wars, right? There's too much visual in that.
I can't visualize a lightsaber. Right? Yeah. You got to see it.
Yeah.
All right, campsite or resort?
Personally, campsite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer to this one, but are you a Chevy man or a Ford man?
Man, Chevy people are happier people.
Yeah.
Chevy people are happy people. I just want you to know that.
Yeah, and you got your own Silverado.
Oh, man, I for decades, I would joke because I have a large family and had a van, had vans.
A minivan.
And so I would always joke, even in the pulpit, probably shouldn't do that, but I would always say that I would pull up in my minivan next to that guy driving the Silverado, and he always looked so happy and content and everything. And so when I kind of semi-retired, the church took that to heart, and they threw me a set of keys to a blue Silverado and a red Silverado, and they said, pick one.
Choose wisely.
Choose wisely. So I picked a blue Silverado, and she is my second love.
Yeah, it's an amazing truck.
Yeah, it's nice.
All right, Wolverines or Spartans?
Well, I've been a Wolverine since I've been in Michigan, so for 30 years, but Izzo's boss.
Yeah.
I'm a Wolverines, but you can't
deny his greatness.
You can't top Izzo. No.
Can't deny his greatness.
He's the man.
All right, so I think that helps our audience get to know you a little bit better and kind of know what you're about on a personal level. But I want to talk a little bit about your journey, okay? So you've done a lot of things in your life. I remember when I first met you as a 15-year-old boy, and I would hear you were such a, in my opinion, even a young man. I think you were 25 years old, so there's only 10 years between us. But I would hear you talk about stories of Alaska and Florida and Arizona and California and like, man, this guy's so young. How has he done all these, like, fishing boats, deadliest catch, hiking in the wilderness? I'm like, man, this guy's been everywhere. He's like the world's most interesting man.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about your journey. Give our audience a little chance of kind of, your life and a snapshot and how you got to where you are right now.
Well, I mean, whenever you tell someone you were born in Southern California, I mean, they land of the fruits and nuts,
Right.
they're like, and my parents were divorced, so I mean, I didn't have a lot of supervision, so I went where I wanted to go and did what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I wasn't always a pastor, let's just say it that way. So, every day was an adventure. I mean, going to the store was just a freewheeling kid,
Yeah.
But my dad was a naval officer, and so when I kind of got to high school and more or less had to choose to kind of live with him, and so we were all over the place. I mean, he was in Galveston Bay, Texas, in the Gulf of Mexico, and he contracted with the government to work with the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the tribal Indians out in Arizona. So we lived in several places in Arizona. Then we went up to Alaska and lived on an island, up in Alaska, a town called Sitka, Alaska, which was the Russian capital when the Russians owned Alaska. So there's all kind of culture there. And then, of course, I wanted out of there, so I went to college in Florida, dude.
Yeah.
So went to
Near the beach.
Pensacola, White Sands. And so that's where I started my college career and actually ended up back here in Michigan. So.
Okay. So what did you go to college for? What was your major?
I was a Christian. I didn't have a lot of biblical training, but I knew I really wanted to deepen that. So I went as an accounting major, business major. Mm-hmm. So I was taking all these business classes, but I was also taking these Bible classes, and then opportunities just kept coming my way to preach and lead different ministry things. I guess people saw that in me before I saw it in myself. And, as the Lord moved me to accepting what they call the Watchman's Commission, the call to preach, that's hard to do, but, you lay yourself down. And so when I accepted that, I just went in wholehearted. So then I ended up, majoring in Bible, and then came up here to Midwestern Baptist College in Pontiac. And
you met a Michigan girl in Florida.
I met a Michigan girl, yes. I met a Michigan girl, and so that was what they call love evangelism. They draw you in.
Missionary evangelism.
Missionary evangelism. So, Amy and I have been married 28 years, have 5 sons. 3 are done with college. They're married, homeowners here in the Owasso area, all working good jobs and things.
Yeah. We actually use Josh, our oldest son, as a freelancer. He helps us with a lot of our web design projects.
Yeah, he's a fantastic guy. He's got 2 kids, so made me a grandfather. Had 5 boys, so I mean, we literally had no drama in our house.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a real testosterone home. It was a fun time. The youngest 2 are in college now, both training, and so several in ministry, several in business.
Yeah.
And
second oldest is a Michigan State Trooper.
Yeah, and my son's a Michigan State Trooper. So, we don't have a lot of money, but we're rich, man.
Yeah.
We are rich.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you met a Michigan girl, ended up in Michigan,
Yeah.
working as a youth pastor at a Cornerstone Baptist Church in Swartz Creek.
Yeah.
What happened from there?
Yeah, so I mean, I had served probably for 5 years in various internships, chaplaincies, always doing ministry. But I was ordained in 1991 and went in full-time Christian ministry, they called it, meaning you just kind of stepped in there. It's not a lot of money, but you make a living. And so, from there we were able to come out to Shiawassee County in Corunna, and we started Emmanuel Baptist Church. We ended up buying that old Goody Barn property that's across the street from Myers. Great location.
Yeah, right on M21.
And just started kind of nitpicking on buildings and redoing and then building some new buildings, etc. And in the process, we started training men on Monday nights in what we called our Bible Institute Pastors College, something like that. We've been doing that for about 20 years. And really the new pastor, Pastor Jason Georges, has really said, I want that to be the focus of what you're doing. And so a lot of the direction is we're going to have a statewide and regional Great Lakes Bible Institute that I'll probably be heading up. The Lord's given me affinity and the opportunity and aptness to teach and train men in the ministry. Not everyone can go away to a Bible college, and most guys need to do it under the tutelage of their pastor and with some help from a Bible Institute anyways.
Right. Well, if you're in the Owasso-Corunna area, and you've kind of seen the church kind of develop, the church, it's really an amazing story. And there's actually a great video on the church website, emmanuelalive.com, that tells the 20-year history, the first 20-year history of your time there. But started in your house, way out by Durand Road, with no bathrooms, and just got people meeting out there and using a pulpit that you found on the side of the road and all that stuff, and then moved into a smaller office building, and then eventually got that property. And people have probably seen that property transform, because it was literally just a couple of pole barns.
We went from the property out, which was in my house. We were there for about 3 months, and then it was just packed. It was just great. And then we moved to what's called the North Street Professional Building on North Street, kind of by the Methodist Church up in Owasso, near where the Owasso High School is. And we were there for a year and a half. And Dr. Rohde, Dr. Hanna were the doctors there that I leased from, and they let us out of our lease early because we just overwhelmed the place.
Outgrew it.
And we bought that old Goody Barn property and just started nickel and diming it. And now it's pretty good. It's
a nice
pretty good looking
now.
property. Yeah,
absolutely.
And we're ready to do expansions now. So they're mortgage free. They're saving funds. They're deciding what the next big building project is. Probably we'll have to buy more property there somehow, but. Those are good problems.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'll brag on you a little bit. As I said, you know, someone who's a mentor, but to see it happen, and we started going to the church when I was 15, so it was right when the church started. Yeah. And to see it going from something small to really just the growth exploded. I mean, God really blessed the work, and not only just buildings, but people. I mean, filling up the biggest room in there. We had to build a bigger room in the back, which was an old warehouse, and then had to build a separate auditorium. And started a Christian school, and today there's still going a Christian school with over 100 students, anywhere from 300 to 400 people on a Sunday morning, sometimes more. As you mentioned, you transitioned out to one of the associate pastors who was there with you by your side for 10 years, Pastor Jason Georges, and now he's kind of he's pastoring, and you're the pastor emeritus.
That's an incredible thing, because most churches don't have good transitions.
Definitely. I've been through 3 or 4, and they were all bad.
And I mean, 90% probably. And I don't know how it ended up being so good, just the goodness of God. But he directed us, and I did my part well. Pastor Georges did his part well. And then the Lord just blessed it. Right now, it's kind of a model of transition. A lot of people are saying, how are you doing this? Because people want to have that kind of transition between pastors so that the place doesn't lose a step, and it's still growing. So.
Well, and you still certainly have a tremendous amount of influence there, and the church is still growing, and God is still blessing. Not that numbers is everything, but you see the hand of God just working, allowing the ministry to not just be local, but as you mentioned, regional and even national, international. So
there's a lot of ministries now that run out of Emmanuel. I don't think locals realize, it's just a local church that does some local things in a big way, but the Michigan Association of Christian Schools office is there, and so we represent probably 60 plus Christian schools. That's why we're so involved in education, from the Lansing level. I ran for office. I ran for the statewide Board of Education twice because of that, to preserve parental rights, church rights, private schools, and then to really actually help local schools. I mean, I want authority to rest in local schools, not in Lansing. And so that was good for Owasso, I think. But we have an international church planting organization called Baptist Church Planting Ministry that is more or less running out of our church now. And we have a ministry to special needs people called In Spite Of Ministries. And they have a huge conference, and Pastor Ashley's all over the place.
Yes, he is, and he just wrote a book.
Yeah, inspiteof.com. He probably wrote one of the best books. I've read it 3 times, cried every time. and he has a great ministry there. And then we've got, other ministries going out of there. So,
of course, the Bible Nation Society.
And the Bible Nation Society. So, I wanted to just plant a church planting church. We've planted churches. But we've become a catalyst to a lot of different things. And that's just the grace of God with moving forward with, our success. We stayed humble, I think. Yeah. We kept going. And we've been generous.
Well,
You've been generous to other
absolutely,
churches.
and that's one of the things, the catalyst ideal that you've
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about, and I've learned that from you, in that Emmanuel and Bible Nation Society have started so many things that seem so much bigger than us, and even maybe we're outside of our means, but we just did it through your leadership and now through Pastor Jason.
Almost, amongst autonomous independent Baptists, there's hardly not anything that's out there that Emmanuel and Bible Nation hasn't done for
And touch, yeah.
and really helped their ministries or whatever, kind of just behind the scenes. And for us, it's just a blessing. We get to be at every table. We get to be involved, and so it makes it double fun.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And have been able to spark other people, like we said earlier, that maybe had more resources or more funds to do something on another level, but knowing where they kind of, recognizing that where they got that idea and being willing to just even allow them to get all the victory, because we're more in it for the cause, not for the credit.
Yeah, amen.
So, all right.
Yeah.
So, you really do have an incredible story, and it might not seem incredible to you because you've lived it, but to somebody from O-Town, lived pretty much in Owasso my whole life, did spend a couple years in New York, which when I tell people that, they assume it was the big city, but it was in a little town in upstate New York, which is about like Owasso. So just hearing someone that's kind of been all over and been able to do so many great things, it's a cool story to hear about. So, but you've been in ministry now for 30 plus years. That's what your life's been about. You've given your life to that. Certainly a very capable leader, entrepreneurial mind, could have done a lot of things, but you chose to do ministry. But I'm certain over that time, you have learned all types of secrets to success. So what are some of the things during your time being a leader, being involved with multiple organizations, heading those things up, having a lot of great victories? What are some of the things that you would share that you've learned as these are some musts for successful people?
Yeah. Well, now I'm working in an authoritarian advisory role for so many different bigger ministries. They want me to come in and solve problems. They want me to come in and be the bad guy to some
Which
extent.
you hate, I know.
Which I hate. I just happen to be good at it. You know what I'm saying? Right. But if people really knew me like you know me, I have a better time than anybody. If we told everybody everything, they wouldn't come to church.
Right.
But,
like you can't threaten you with take me to jail. Like that's all right. Let's go. Like that doesn't scare you.
Yeah, you don't really know. But no, I think there's a couple themes I thought about today, and some people are in ministry and they just want to be in charge of something, or they want to have their own destiny, and that's great. But there's a place for authority and authoritarianism. I mean, I have to take the authority in my family over my boys as they're growing up.
Right.
But as they're grown up and their own men, I don't really have that anymore.
Right.
So hopefully, if I did the authoritarian things right, now I have influence on them. That it's influence without speaking,
right? Or
it's influence when I speak and it's not authoritarian speech. It still has its place, and so that's what we call leadership. Now, some people have a position of authority, and they're in leadership,
right?
And so
positional leadership,
positional leadership, and that goes so far.
Right.
You have your name on the door, and that goes so far. I'm in charge, so you're going to do what I do, and follow me.
But that typically only works when you're right there.
Yeah, and
if they don't have buy-in.
There's some people are good at it, and some people aren't good at it, and some people are authoritarian, but they're evil.
Right.
Some people are good leaders, but they're leading people. I mean, they're leading people
astray.
Yeah. I just read. The Drudge Report had an article that was actually from the Atlantic Monthly magazine on the East Coast, which is very liberal thing, so it wasn't like from a conservative standpoint, but it was on Jeff Bezos. A guy had written an article about him about 10 years, very critical of Bezos being going to monopolize everything, and then's been investigating him ever since, and wrote another article, said, man, I just realized it's not just about Bezos's authoritarian leadership or whatever else, it's about where he's really leading people.
Right. It's
not just to buy my products, it's to get in my box.
The end game.
It's his end game is very utopian, Orwellian.
Yeah.
And this is not a Christian man or conservative man, right? This is a liberal guy saying, we got to watch out for these tech giants, and then really looking at this guy. Now, Bezos is an incredible authority.
For sure.
And he's an incredible leader, but we still have to be able to have determination of good and evil. Here comes the scripture, Isaiah, the prophet. Woe unto them that call good evil and evil good. And that's just a woe. I mean, it's not necessarily a curse. It's just saying you better be able to have some discernment amongst authority and leadership. So I found myself sometimes authoritarian, and after it was done, say, okay, I got my way, I got that done, and then thinking, well, I'm not sure that was the best way or whatever. And then in leadership, sometimes you have a kumbaya session and you think you're the leader. And Mark Twain used to say, he who thinketh he leadeth and hath no one following is just taking a walk.
Yeah.
And so you can be in a quote unquote position of leadership, but there's nobody following you.
Right.
So authority and leadership are two things to handle together. They're like a sword and a shield. And when they're worked together, I think you get the best outcome. And so that's a business principle too.
Absolutely.
Because if you're a business owner, you're the authority.
Right.
And you're dealing with authorities, but you better have a good way with people, or you better really know yourself, so you know where you're taking people.
Self-awareness.
So,
Yeah.
you know, this idea of business owners kind of diving in, and I have this idea, and then it all goes kapooey. They really didn't know themselves, and
Right.
they didn't know where they were going, let alone leading,
Right.
staff, down the line. So,
Yeah.
a pastor does have to exercise authority.
Right. Right.
Authority is protective. Leadership is proactive.
Mm.
Authority is reactive.
Yeah.
Leadership knows where it's going. Both are necessary.
Right.
And so that blanket principle leads into, I think, which is my favorite secret, and that is that you can really exercise your authority well, and God can use you to use your authority well as a good guy, as his representative, so to speak, if you're a good leader. And leadership equals influence. That's what it is. Could be good or bad. It's kind of a neutral thing. I want to influence people.
Right.
I can influence people with my personality, or my words, or my money, or whatever.
Actions. Yeah.
Actions. But leadership is influence. So how do you gain influence? That's
Right.
really the key.
Right.
Good or bad. People could be listening to us and devising evil or devising good. But hopefully, you've got business community saying, how can I lead well? Well,
Right.
influence people, and you influence people by serving them. Customer service, right? The customer's always right concept. But really what you're doing is you're helping them win.
Right.
Whether they're buying detergent, whether they're getting legal services. If your mindset is just contractual, it's just
Transactional.
me being transactional, me being the authority, or me leading you to an outcome that then is done.
Right. It doesn't help you.
Yeah. Well, then that's good. So yeah, you got it. You got your yacht. You're out there enjoying it, or whatever. But you're really not a leader, and you'll really not have a legacy. You'll sell your business to someone else, and they'll destroy it. So, how do you help people win? How do you give them wins? That's then key, because some people come and they're willing and they're ready, and some people are living in such a way as they're opposing themselves. And the Bible says, help those that oppose themselves.
Right.
So don't be mad at them. Don't be frustrated with them. Help them win. Sometimes this is incrementally. Sometimes there's, literally come to Jesus moments where I see the light, Sometimes they come to that moment when you're exercising your authority.
Yeah.
And so you have to exercise it in such a way.
And sometimes they don't recognize it till years later.
Are you speaking from experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As you know, after working for you, I went to New York to help one of our church plants, and it was a volunteer role. I went from a full-time ministry to God's calling me to New York. I'm not really sure why. I knew this church needed help, but they couldn't afford to pay me. And just through some relationships I had built over the years, I was offered a general manager's position at a rather sizable hotel.
Yeah.
And so I went from Friday being like, the associate pastor, had some responsibility, but didn't really carry the mantle.
Yeah.
So now I'm the guy on Monday, I'm this general manager.
You have authority.
Right. And now I have.
How can am I just going to wield authority, or am I really going to lead these people?
Yeah. And I hadn't a clue.
Yeah.
But I just knew, all right, if this is what God's calling me to do, I can do it. And so I attacked it head on. But it was amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Even the things that frustrated me as working underneath you as an employee, like, why is he frustrated? You don't see it when you're on that side. And then when you have employees working for you, you're like, oh, that's what he was talking about.
Oh, man.
I see why that bugged you, because that bugs me too. And you start to recognize, and then to get people. You can see, okay, I have a hotel. In this specific example, I have a hotel. I see where I want this hotel to go. But if I'm the only one that sees where I want the hotel to go, I can't do it by myself.
Right.
So how do I get other people
Yes.
to buy into this idea?
Yes.
And I will tell you 99.9% of the things that I did, and I had a tremendous amount of success. And I'm telling you, I took that hotel from being a middle of the road kind of Comfort Inn to, by the time I left, it was the #1 Comfort Inn in New York State.
Yeah.
#1.
Yeah.
Platinum award winning.
In a short amount of time.
Absolutely. Three in a year,
Yeah.
3 years. Platinum award winning, awards from Choice Hotels for highest complaint reduction. And every single bit of it I would accredit to having people around me. But getting those people around you is only the first part. But getting them to do what needed to happen.
Yes.
And 99.9% of it was me just having absorbed what I learned, not even realizing I was absorbing it. Some of it resorbing it begrudgingly. Like, I just have to do this because he's my boss. And understanding then what it meant to be a leader. And seeing where something needed to go. And then hearing that voice, like, I know where I heard that, I know where I said that. And then giving those people the opportunity to do something that they never thought they could do, to be a part of something bigger than them, was just fantastic.
So when you give people a win, they're automatically they like the taste of winning. And you become their de facto leader. And in a lot of areas of life, maybe financially, relationally, whatever, people sometimes use their leadership skills to bring things about, but it only benefits them.
Right.
And, I think, if God gave you these skills, he's giving you to really help people win. And I guess that's a ministry mindset, but I think it's a good business mindset.
No question about it.
As well. There's different levels. You can have 50 employees and, 5 are at the highest level. You're their de facto, leader, and you got 5 down, at every different level, and you're trying to bring them along. And probably one of the biggest mistakes I made is I sometimes felt like, I could make leaders out of people. I could bring anybody along.
Right.
But you can only bring some people along so far, and you can't bring everybody to the highest level of leadership. But you can try to help everybody win. And when you have that spirit, then that lasts a long time. It comes back to you. I'm not a believer in karma.
Right.
I'm a believer in what you sow, that's what you reap.
Reaping and sowing.
And that's true in relationships. And so you become a legacy leader. Legacy leaders, on either side of the gamut. You have like a Martin Luther King, or you have a Robert E. Lee. And, either way, today people know their name. They quote what they said. They research what they thought, how they did it, what their lives were about. The guys had authority, but they practiced leadership, influence by helping people win. People were helped by Martin Luther King.
Absolutely.
People were helped by Robert E. Lee. And so that's the idea is I get, because I practiced that for a while, now I get to be pastor emeritus, doing all these things, getting called in and getting this special thing. But I'm not using it for myself.
Right.
you know?
Well, and it's, I think, like you said, it begins with, number one, knowing yourself. You read all these books now that the hottest new topic is, they call it emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Self-awareness.
Yeah, emotional IQ.
Knowing yourself, knowing your strengths,
That's
knowing your
true.
weaknesses. But that's really kind of where it starts. You have to move past that, because
Yes.
knowing yourself is only the first part. But then understanding what you're capable of and what your ceiling is and how you can even increase your capacity a little bit, and then finding people, surrounding yourself with those people, and learning how individually you can point out their strengths and weaknesses, and then help them do those things, help them win in areas. And one of the things I'm proud of in the hotel world, here I only have 3 or 4 employees, so I don't do as much management as I used to. But when, there were times where I had 60 employees working for me, and one of the things I was most proud of is, they always say that the number one killer to hotels and restaurants is the turnover of employees.
No retention.
And we were able to keep almost the same staff for 3 years. I mean, everyone just, and we found ways to motivate them and to inspire them. But they would all say they looked at it as more than just a job. They were a part of this long-term vision, and getting to be a part of winning and getting these awards. They felt very much a part of it.
For some of them, they had tasted victory in that hotel business with you as each other for the first time. And so you give them a little bit more, get them a little bit more, get them a little more. And they're learning things in life. They're being able to be a better parent or whatever as well. So, man, it's a biblical principle. The Bible actually says you know yourself by looking in the Scripture. So there's a lot of ways people can find out about themselves, but spiritual mindedness is one way to do that. But then when you're helping other people do that on whatever level, then working for you is not just for a paycheck.
Right.
Working for you becomes ethereal to them.
Right.
And the business becomes soulful to them.
Yeah.
And they'll do things for you that they'd never do for previous bosses.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and then for them to see you stand up on that stage and get that award, but then to 100% say,
that's my reward.
it was for the staff.
Yes.
I couldn't have done it without them. They literally, they deserve this award. And not just hearing those words, but knowing that I believe that, because I said it to them personally.
Yes.
And letting them see what part cleaning a room played in that, what part serving some Danishes played in that, what part checking in a guest or fixing a doorknob, how each of them played a pivotal role in getting that victory. And those people, even just today, I was on the phone with a gal that was a manager for me, and she's got this new job opportunity. She just left the hotel business. Now she's doing a management of a different thing. Doesn't really love it, but she just says, man, I've never worked for somebody that motivated me, inspired me like you, and I want to be that type of manager. And this is years later, 8 years later, and they still remember that because they felt like a part of something like that. And I think it's so important that if you are managing people, you're leading an organization, you have to learn how to, number one, don't be so concerned about getting the credit.
Right.
You know, it's amazing.
You own all the failures. You share all the victories.
Right.
Yeah.
I like how you said that.
And then you owning the failure, that's where kind of your authority comes in, because you're going to make some corrections with some people and yet help them take care of some of their foibles.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of life. But then the leadership part is that you're sharing the victories. And so taking that sword and shield into life, business, parenting, ministry, whatever, becoming good at that. We work at it. You can become a champion at that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I think a big part of something I've heard you talk about a lot as well, in this idea of giving people a win, is building change with people. It's a fantastic principle. Why don't you share what that means about building up change with people in order to?
So let me use you as an example.
Yeah.
We got Zach over here, our tech guy too, and I got to, execute some discipline on Zach at times.
We both coached him.
We both coached him, so we've both beat down on Zach. It's amazing he's not crying in a corner right now. But no. So basically, as you give people wins, every time you win, there's change going in your pocket.
Right.
And the change is not used selfishly. The change, if it builds up, is you're able to, at a certain time then, spend that change with that person when you correct them.
Right.
And so, like, there might have been a time I might need to say, hey, Mr. Nash, Tony, you're not doing this well. I want you to improve on this. And that hurts. That hurts the ego. That hurts and so you're correcting somebody. But correcting, when you use authority and leadership right, is a great tool.
Right.
And I always say, for every one correction, which is necessary, give 10 attaboys.
Yeah.
So you're building the change up so that when you need to put a pocket full of change on the table and say, no, sir, maybe even you're going a week without pay or whatever the disciplinary system is that person doesn't run off and sue you or fly off or whatever. The correction bites.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the good use of authority and leadership together. And, some of that's, probably we should talk about buy-in.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
About buy-in.
Getting people to buy into your vision.
Yeah. So people, for instance, from my perspective, they walk into a church, sometimes you walk into a church and you're a skeptic. You're like, I don't know about this, So how do you get people to buy in? I always felt that the message was important, the most poignant thing, but the atmosphere was important too.
Yeah. And
the spirit was important. If they could buy in on the atmosphere and the spirit, and they were getting a little bit of victory, a sense of being nearer to God or whatever, then I was going to give them victory after victory until such a time as I could really put the most poignant stuff in them about God, about Christ, about their soul and their salvation or whatever. It wasn't always a 30-second win. Sometimes it was a 6-week buy-in sort of thing. It was not a manipulation of people. It was a leading of people to higher ground, So, again, vision
starts with vision.
It starts with vision. Vision. So, I mean, if I know myself, I know what calling is. But vision can be selfish.
For sure.
And evil. Vision can be selfless and virtuous. Key vision that you are trying to take an organizational vision.
Right.
Again, this article about Bezos. He has 600,000 employees.
Wow.
150 of them are his executives. With all the talk of diversity, he's only got one woman on there. So, I mean, hypocritical,
For sure.
of that. But then they all fight for the top 12 spots. I mean, he's very messianic in what he thinks
inner
he's
12,
doing for.
yeah.
He thinks he's saving the
His
world.
disciples.
Sort of thing, yeah. But those guys are all economists and they're physicists. They're not even business people. They're not even tech people. I mean, they really are trying to change society, and they are doing it.
For sure.
They're putting us in the Amazon box, you know. So that's his vision. Okay, to me, that's selfish. That's that borderline evil.
Yeah.
You know. But people are doing it. But his key thing too is vision. So when he's putting together teams, they're small teams, and they have to be able to put their vision in scope and sequence on 6 pages, no more than 6 pages, double spaced. So it's not a lot of words.
Right.
I would say when you're leading just a small business, people need to be able to put their vision in 1 or 2 sentences.
Yeah.
You know, what are we doing in 1 or 2 sentences? Maybe it's vaguer than what they want it to be. So it's bigger.
Yeah.
And it should always be about helping people win.
Absolutely.
You know, in the vision. And once that's there, it has to be said.
Yeah.
So you have to believe in it enough to put it on the wall, to have a meeting, and to not just say the vision, but I call it cast the vision.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like you're baiting the hook. You're casting the vision with illustration, with expense, with personal storylines. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just you reading your 2 statements.
Right.
You're clarifying, you know, casting the vision. So casting the vision would always come down to a day, a time, an expense, and when it's all done, everyone's repeating that.
Yeah.
And that's done on every level. I just was up in the Upper Peninsula, and years ago I'd preached at a camp up there. It had about 150 teenagers, and the camp director wanted me to emphasize the idea of eternal security. That is, when you become a Christian, you're always a Christian. God's never going to break that covenant with you. So with the teenagers, I had this sermon called No Doubt. Okay, so that was the vision that I was casting, and I had scriptures, and then that was the line, and then there was illustration and everything else. And we built up to that time. I had 150 teenagers saying, "No doubt."
Yeah.
No, I have no doubt. I'm sure. And I was up there. This was years ago, and a couple ladies, they're now in their 20s, came up and they said, "Dr. Levesque, no doubt."
They remembered it.
Okay, so the vision was cast that day.
They caught it.
I helped them win because every teenager doubts their own spirituality.
Yeah.
And so I helped them win. They remembered my name. They remember what I said. That's moving up the levels of leadership.
Yeah.
Now, you can translate that to business and dollars,
For sure.
revenue
Absolutely.
and profits. I mean, you
Absolutely.
can transfer that, but the more selfless you are with it, the better human being you're going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so these girls had a connection. I'm taking a ministry line, but we can transfer it to business. These girls had a connection that was beyond the point of sale.
Right.
Okay, so you're the guy that sells me hammers, but because we had a connection beyond the point of sale, now you're selling other paints, and you're selling hardware, and you're selling other things, and then more than that, now they want to talk to you about other things.
Right.
You know, now you can influence them.
Absolutely.
For their gain, and now all them and all their family are buying hammers and paints
Right.
and things from
Word
you.
of mouth. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, so what I'm saying is these are scriptural principles that have infected American business. And so American businessmen will use all these different kinds of terms that are very spiritual, very
Right.
ethereal.
Right.
But when they do it, you know, we kind of lift up, you know, our American way of doing business. Opposite, say, communism, right? But the American way of business only works if people do that not just for themselves.
Right.
They do it for others.
Right.
So, yeah, we can be all about the American way of doing business, but, you know, foundationally, that's not just about the business owner or the bottom line. It's about more than that. It's about building relationships and connections beyond the point of sale.
Absolutely. And if you are listening and you are either currently a business owner or leading an organization or thinking of starting a business, first of all, obviously take some time to, if you don't know your strengths and weaknesses, stop and let's just start there. But then you also need to know where you're headed. What is your vision? You got to look past today. You got to look past tomorrow. You got to think, where am I taking this organization? Where am I taking this company? How am I going to, or where do I want to end up? Before you can ever lead one person really effectively and to get them to buy in, they have to know what they're buying into. And then as Dr. Levesque just described, the ways of really giving that win to them so that they will understand where you're going and will buy into what you're doing there. And I think that it is vital, it is key for a leader, for an entrepreneur, for a manager to adopt these things and to take the time to really implement these things into your daily routine. So I have here a statistic from the SBA that 30% of all new businesses fail in the first year. 50% fail in the first 5 years. Half. Now we're just getting ready to hit our 5-year mark here, and we don't plan on going anywhere. We feel like things are definitely moving up, but that's very real. And even here in our small town of Owasso, I mean, just in the last year, all the different businesses that have closed. And so it's a very real thing, and certainly a lot of the things we're talking about would help, but why do you think, in your experience, you've worked with a lot of different organizations and people, why do you think leaders and organizations fail at such a high rate?
Well, in ministry, it's the same way. 2/3 of church plants, they fail in the first year.
Wow.
That's a first year thing. So we probably have a similar thing. And I think, to me, again, it's, you're not wielding authority and leadership in the proper restraints. See, authority equates to ownership and money. Leadership equates to service and giving wins. So you need both in balance. And you need to be good at both, and you need to execute authority when you need to execute authority in the right way, but you need to execute leadership most of the time. It should be an 80-20 thing. And then when you're done with business, you're not just Scrooge.
Right.
You are a community man. You're a community man.
Yeah.
You're a business entrepreneur and giver to society. I think probably that's part of the failure. People don't know who they are, don't really know where they're going. They don't really, they have an idea. They've seen something on TV or YouTube or something.
An idea is different than a vision.
An idea is different than a vision. A vision is written down, it's castable,
Yeah.
it's catchable, but usually the leader knows what that is, and,
Right.
he models it, and he's proactive. If you're constantly reacting in ministry and life and business, you be proactive, 90% proactive, so that you're going where you want to go, and you're charting that out. I used to do this. People think this is crazy, but engineers, like GM engineers that have to engineer a product, a plant, and a vehicle with 15,000 parts, and over the course of a year, they would build what's called a Gantt chart or an activities chart, and that would go for a year or 2 years. I did that in ministry. I would have a Gantt chart. You've seen them on the wall that were 5 years and multiple things, so that you can't be reinventing your vision every 6 months because you get a different idea. You have to stick with stuff. So you have that vision, you plan it out, and that way over the next couple years, you've got multiple hands and multiple things, but you know what you're doing every day. Every day there's something to do. If you just tick the box, that day you're getting towards a bigger plan. I think that works in business. I think the other thing is, most people think, well, I read this book, I saw this thing on YouTube, I got the loan, so I got my 10 grand and I got this. We're moving, but a work ethic. And I would even say, in ministry, you've always been a spiritual man, had a spiritual heart, and that's the most important thing. But the second thing is work ethic. And that's why you worked for me, because one thing I never had a problem with you or any of your other compatriots. They were going to work.
We're going to work, no question about it.
A lot of other ministers come into our ministry and are like, "Wow, how can you guys do all these things?" And it really is, we worked every day.
Right.
Church was not a Sunday thing.
It wasn't a Sunday thing.
Our church is 24/7
For sure.
on what's going on, and so, when you put a sign up and you have a logo and you have a slogan, that's a reputation. But your work ethic is your character.
Yeah.
Building relationships past the point of sale is your character, and that creates the atmosphere and the ethos that draws people. So you're either putting all kinds of money into drawing people, or you're naturally drawing people. One person tells another person, they bring their mom, the whole family's coming. That's because you created that atmosphere and ethos with the proper tools.
I think people want to go to a church that's going somewhere. I think also people want to work for an organization that they believe is going somewhere.
Yeah.
And so just for the simple fact of attracting the right kind of people to your organization is know where you're headed.
Yeah.
So that when you get that
Yeah.
great find. You've interviewed 100 people to find one good one.
Yeah.
And you find that person. Why would they choose to work for your company? It can't just be, especially in the world today, it can't just be about offering more money.
No.
Because there's
No.
tons of jobs out there.
Right.
I mean, McDonald's is paying $15 an hour for crying out loud.
Right.
So if it's just money is the only thing you have to attract, you're gonna lose people.
Right.
They need to see this is going somewhere, and they can be a part of something bigger. Because we're also living in a society, especially with the millennial generation,
Yeah.
where people don't see the value of the 9 to 5. Matter of fact, there's a lot of statistics out there that young people like these Uber-style jobs where they can work when they want to work.
And we criticize them. They're right to an extent.
Yeah.
They're right to an extent. The new motto out there is don't buy a couch, because then the couch has to have the end table and a TV in front of it, and then it has to have the walls and the flooring, and you begin to live for that lifestyle. And a lot of the younger people are saying we could never do it.
Right.
We can't
They don't
do
see
it.
it.
So why should we even start? They're quitting before they start,
Yeah.
and they're starting this alternative lifestyle. But what's beneficial about that is it seems to be healthier. It seems to be more mindful.
It's not materialistic, for
and
sure.
soulful. Yeah, it's not materialistic.
You hear a lot of young people say that they want to do something that has a purpose, and they want to feel like they're contributing to the society and to the world. And however that manifests themselves in the world is different for a lot of people. But I think that people are recognizing, especially these younger generations, is that they read statistics like 90+% of people, Americans, hate their job. And then they buy all these things that they think are going to make them happy, which don't. And then they got to continue to work the job they hate to pay for those things that really didn't make them happy. And so they get stuck in this vicious cycle. And the next generation is seeing that, and they're like, I look at my own father, who's worked in a factory that he hates for almost 50 years. Gone every day, faithful, worked his way up.
And there's a virtue in that
Certainly.
that this generation needs to recognize.
Absolutely.
Too. Yeah.
Absolutely. But even as a young man, I'm like, I worked in the factory for a year. I'm like, I could not do this.
Not doing it.
I can't do it.
Right.
And so, and then I found different things that, that I was called to do and had purpose in, but even in my current position today, and I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, that I could make a lot more money doing other things. I've turned down some big money jobs, but I prefer to do something that allows me the ability to work at my own schedule and that I can choose to take the funds and give back the things that I want to. And so I think that idea of just you're going to find people that are willing to come and put in their 40 hours a week faithfully, we're losing it. You don't have a lot of people like that anymore.
Right.
So
there has to be more vision and buy-in.
Absolutely.
And it has to be helping them win. And I would even say, if I'm just helping somebody win with something selfish, I'm not really helping them win. I want to help them win with something that's really going to benefit their life as a person as well. So, atmosphere and ethos is important for your home. Yeah. It's important for your business. It's important for church. Yeah. Too.
So we talked about a lot of different things here. I think most of it was centrally focused on this idea of giving people a win. We talked about how to do that, but what are some of the, as we kind of boil it all down here to the brass tacks, what are some of the must-dos that you would say from your 30-plus years of experience of leading, not just churches, but organizations and leading leaders, leading high-level guys and gals? What would you say? Here's some of the things, let's give our audience a couple of takeaways. You must do these things in order to really be successful in a leadership role.
For what I'm doing, I think trying to have biblical thought injected into every aspect of culture takes courage, because there are a lot of detractors, and there's a lot of other thoughts and voices that are directly opposed. And yet it's that thought that disseminates into a law or a bill or a broadcast or whatever. So I'm trying to be on that level of things. Right. And, in all this Bible, 66 books of the Bible, there's only one time the Bible actually says success. Yeah. You know what I mean? But there's a lot in the Word. And he says, I want to read it. Joshua 1:8, Joshua, Old Testament. So Moses is off the scene. Joshua's got to take over. He's freaking out. Right. I mean, it's like a no-win situation. Like, please, no, I don't want to be the next Moses.
I've been watching these people for a long time. I don't want to lead them.
I saw the Charlton Heston movie. I'm out. I don't want to do this. But he says this, the book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Now, before and after God says this 3 times, he says, be strong and of good courage, be strong and of good courage, be strong and of good courage. In other words, it's going to take strength and courage to meet this demand that Joshua is going to step up and be a Moses-like person with these people, and lead them. But what success is defined there is keep the word in your mouth. So for me, it'd be easier not to step up to the heavy things of society.
Yeah.
For me, it would be be strong and courageous. Keep the word in your mouth. Be easy to quiet and go along and do my own thing. I'm certainly not getting rich either way.
Right.
So for me, success is what the Bible says success is, and that is be strong and courageous. Keep that word in you, and keep speaking it when it's popular, when it's unpopular.
Right.
Keep showing that it is the reason for good business acumen. It's the reason for good governance. And so that's me personally.
Yeah.
That's me personally. I think generally you can make an application from that.
For sure.
And that is, if you're just setting out and success is just your own thing. I got my land up north and now I'm checking out and everybody else can go wherever. Get all you can all you get, sit on the can and wait for everybody else to die.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of,
Right.
That doesn't work.
No.
But if you will be strong and courageous, because that surrounds the word success scripturally.
Well,
And so you have to know who you are, get on the path, and then be strong and courageous, because people are going to knock you off your horse.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I've heard you say a lot too that when you are in leadership, you're going to get shot at. You're going to have to take some bullets. You're going to have to. So
Many a pastor. That's a lot of what I do today. Almost every day, somebody calls me from someplace, and they begin to tell me about their situation and what do you think I should do, or can you come help, or will you pray for us, or whatever. And sometimes I just say, "Welcome
to the ministry."
And that would be.
I've heard that one.
Sometimes you just say, "Welcome to the business realm."
Yeah.
You're gonna 3
Yeah.
steps forward, 2 steps back, but we're gonna be proactive. We're gonna keep going. It's
Absolutely.
to be expected.
Yeah, there are certainly all kinds of setbacks that happen and things that come your way, and you have to be strong in your mind and strong in your heart, determined. You have to have courage that you're going to silence the haters. You got to. That comes from knowing that what you're doing is right. For me, I have a supreme confidence that I'm doing what God wants me to do.
Right.
I feel a holy, divine purpose in this, even in running a business,
Yeah.
because I know what it allows me.
Strength and courage, and like you said, confidence is not pride and arrogance.
No.
It's not.
No.
It's not. Now we got to check our pride.
They
and
can
arrogance.
manifest themselves that way.
They can manifest, but when you're doing that, walking hand in hand with God, with who you know what you are, to me that's success. If I get on the end of something and I'm looking back down the road,
Right.
and I say, you know what, I kept the word in my mouth, and I was strong and courageous. And if I was a businessman, I would look at that. But I look at that as a parent, as a grandparent, as being in people's lives, looking back and say, I stayed the same thing. I said the same things.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about this word success because it's a word we talk about a lot on this podcast. And it's, you see all kinds of books with the word success on it, how to achieve success, 7 steps to success, blah, blah, blah. But I think, and I've said this a lot, that success is really defined individually. The dictionary definition of success is not necessarily the same for everybody. I mean, there's a dictionary definition, but what might be success to you might not be success to me. So I think it's also important, and part of that vision, that you've determined, how will I know I've achieved success? What is success for me?
Right.
And some people that's money, some people that's time, some people that's fame.
Donald Trump became president,
Right.
but his family life's a wreck. So how do you, he's got a nice closet full of suits.
Yeah.
And he lives in a high rise.
Right.
But
Exactly. So what is success to Doug Levesque?
I think primarily staying with strength and courage, not letting that fail. In my own life, I can't control anybody else with that. When I am kind of going to be at the end of the ministry, look back and say, was I a success? It'll be ethereal. It'll be spiritual. It's not that pragmatically I don't have wants. I've never wanted much. Really, the Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. I've never, but I have 2 houses.
Sure.
Because I have literally 1,000 people that own me, that love me, that I basically have any summer vacation home I want. anytime, ever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to pay taxes. I don't have to clean it,
Right.
you know. So I don't really have those kind of wants. Although I would be happy looking back if I had a sailboat.
Yeah.
So I think Owasso needs to know that. We're
Yeah.
like the farthest away from any Great Lakes. But
Yeah.
if anybody wants to,
You go out Hopkins Lake.
anybody wants to take me on their sailboat, or I'll do some work for you, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not that I'm without some pragmatic wants or desires, but for me, it's family. It's ethereal. Usually, by the time a church is in the third generation, it's starting to deteriorate or fail.
Right.
So we always got to keep having churches. But
Right.
I would hope that this wonderful legacy that we've started will survive third generation.
Right.
It's striving right now in second generation. And at this point in time, I really don't have authority there, but I do have leadership
Yeah.
there because I have influence, because
Yeah.
I've helped people. And so I have to do it quietly under the authority of my pastor. So
Yeah.
I'm working in a totally different dynamic.
Right.
But it's not $1 million.
Right.
It's not a 50-foot sailboat. There's things that I need and that I would like. I guess I would want to make sure my wife's taken care of.
Yeah.
Right. That's success.
Sure.
I got some grandkids, and boy, our grandkids make you honestly go crazy because it's almost like you throw everything else out the window. All your business acumen.
Yeah.
All these. It's like grandkids. Yeah. It's like toys
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
So those are important, successful
Yeah.
things. But seeing you and a whole bunch of other men thrive,
Mm-hmm.
to me, that's right. That's right up there
Yeah.
with the choicest success, because there's a lot of you guys and gals that are out there
Absolutely.
doing tremendous, tremendous things, and we get to be a little bit of a part of it. I'm not
Yeah.
AZ, but I get the satisfaction of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No question about it. And I think success has to be ethereal and spiritual, because anyone that I know that has defined success as material, even when they reach that material goal, it's not enough.
No, it's not.
It's not enough.
The
And
most
so-
wealthy people are the ones that are doing themselves in,
Yeah.
or then destroying their relationships or their lives or whatever. Even good people coming up, you get a teenager and they say, well, I just can't wait to be able to move out of the house. Then I'll be happy. And then
Right.
I just can't wait till I fall in love. Then I'll
Right,
be happy. Then
right.
if I can just get married,
Yeah.
I'll be happy. And then if I
Just
can
have
just have
kids.
kids, if I can just get a house, if I can just get a car, if I can just have a
Never
vacation.
ending.
And it's really never ending. And
Right.
those things are part of life.
Sure.
Those things and they're good things and they're different things, but
If you attach yourself to that, or your happiness to
Yeah.
that, or even your definition of success is really hinged upon achieving some material possession, it's an endless pursuit.
Right.
It's an endless pursuit. And there's even people that I know that are
Yeah.
close to me
Yeah.
that think I'm nuts
Yeah.
for doing what I do when they know I turn down $250,000 a year
Right.
jobs. Like, what are you, nuts? But
Right.
to me, because my happiness is not defined by there's things I want.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to
Yeah.
get me a 72 Chevelle. I'd like to have a bigger house. I mean,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
none of those things really define me or who I am.
Right.
If I get them someday, I'm going to be, happy as pie. But if I don't, it's all right. It wasn't part of the plan. And so I think your success has to be spiritual and ethereal. And I think
Yeah.
you need to think that through.
I think when you're doing things like we're talking about, where it's kind of helping people win, just like you said, there was a girl that came that had worked under you, and then she
Yeah.
said, "I just wanted like you." Well, I get a little bit of that
Absolutely.
because in training you use those same things, but I don't even know about that,
Uh-huh.
and so. I when you work that way, you don't know the level of impact and
Who you've
influence that
invested
you
in.
have, and so that's what's great, and you just get satisfied and content with that,
Yeah.
and you don't have any unhappiness.
You peel your head at night knowing
Yeah.
that you've done well to your fellow man and
Yeah.
you've done well for yourself and your family. So,
Yeah.
well, I always ask this question at the end of my podcast to all of my guests, and we all have that one-liner piece of advice that we like to give. But what is Doug Levesque's best piece of advice?
My magnum opus thought from the beginning, before I was here in the county, was from the book of Daniel. So Daniel was a young man that basically was taken hostage, taken to Babylon. They weren't really fond of the Hebrews. He probably was made a eunuch. I mean, that's for real,
Yeah.
He never had a wife and kids, and we don't read about any of that. And then he was under the gun for 70 years. I mean, there was 7 different kings, 5 different administrations that went through in that historical timeline, and all he ever was a glorified servant slave. And I feel like that's kind of where we are today. We're in a form of Babylon, an American Babylon. And we've got some handicaps and we've got some limitations. I certainly do. I've got some demons in my closet, some past and history that hold me back, et cetera, et cetera. But how do you survive Babylon? How do you thrive in it? Because Daniel did. And the one verse was the Bible said that then this Daniel was preferred above presidents and princes because an excellent spirit was found in him. And the king lifted him up so that he would know no damage. In other words, he knew that Daniel was the best place to put his change in.
Right.
And that's what Bible Nation's about, really. That's what I'm trying to do now is be preferred above presidents and princes and execute the excellent spirit that Daniel has. So to me, that's success. That's the best advice I can give someone is have an excellent spirit. It's not a happy-go-lucky spirit. It's not Garfield and Odie, where Odie doesn't matter what happens to Odie, he's just happy. It's not slapstick stupid.
Right.
An excellent spirit has a real relationship with the living God, is enthused about the things of God, has an attitude that is above people and circumstances, which is hard, has a proper balance and perspective on all things, and then works at being a good steward. These 5 things are an acrostic, REAPS, relationship, enthusiasm, attitude, proper balance, and stewardship, reaps. You reap what you sow. If you sow these elements, you'll reap that excellent spirit, and you'll be preferred above presidents and princes. Whether you're a dad or a business owner or personality, education, military, law, doesn't matter what field you're in. You can be a shepherd of souls through a generation. And so I would hope that more people would be that in their life, not just a consumer, not just a money maker, not just success because you have that many hits or because you're as popular as Jay-Z or whatever. But they would have this ethereal sense of success, and they would do that by this means like Daniel did, by having an excellent spirit. In the original language was noble. People need to walk with more nobility. We tell people, hey, take some pride in yourself, but really it's, the children of God are children of the King. Take some nobility, believe it, walk it, live it, be humble about it. Serve Christ with an excellent spirit. That's my number one line.
Well, and I will say this, that
I wrote a book, Tony.
Yes,
Surviving
and
This
I've
Man.
read it, and it's fantastic.
Okay.
Plug the book.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I was actually, I can attest to this because I was assigned the task when we celebrated 20 years of helping put together the video. And one of the things I had thought of when I was writing the script or helping write the script, I said, I want to find Pastor Doug's first ever sermon at Emmanuel Baptist Church.
Yeah.
And we had cases and cases, Rubbermaid bins of old cassette tapes.
Yeah, cassette tapes, man.
Cassette tapes.
Yeah.
And I spent probably 4 hours.
Yeah.
And this is where, remember the phrase
Yeah.
you used to say to me, monumentalizing the trivial?
Yeah.
Where I would spend so much time on the littlest detail. I knew that this tape
So
would
you found it.
This tape would only be 10 seconds of the whole video, but I'm like, I'm going to find this tape.
Yeah.
It's got to be out there.
Yeah.
I'm certain somebody recorded this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I spent like 4 hours going through every bin. And I'm telling you, the very last bin that I opened up, and there were the dates, 1997, 1996, 2004.
Yeah.
I opened up this last bin, and the top said 2011. I'm like, there's no way it's in here, but I'm just going to look. I'm going to look. And I'm not even joking, I got to the very bottom of that bin, and pointed a different way and standing straight up was this tape, and it said August 5th, 1995.
Yeah.
And you
First
know what?
sermon out.
You know what the title was of that sermon? Serving Christ with an Excellent Spirit.
Yes.
And I thought, to me, that was the most amazing thing. Not that I just found it, but that this man has been preaching this for 20 years, and he stayed true to it.
I knew who I was. I knew what I was called to do. I knew how to cast that vision and help people win with it, and I still am.
Yeah.
Even in a different role.
It wasn't just this idea that you came up with one day, and it was like that was from the beginning. And to see that carry out and manifest itself over 20 years, and to hear, like your story earlier, where people said, what was your that the girl came up to you and said, be something.
Oh,
yeah. Years later, people still say, have an excellent spirit. It's still very much a part of the church and the culture, and it's affected a lot of people's lives in such a positive way. And so to see not only just someone have a great go-to, but actually live that out and be that and exemplify that. Yeah. And I want to say, and we could talk for hours. We could talk for hours. And if you're still listening, thank you for going on this journey with us. But I want to say thank you so much for the influence you've had in my life, for number one, exemplifying a man of God first and foremost, and showing me what that's like. Exemplifying being a good dad. I had a good father in my life, but I had a good man as well. I have 3 boys, and you had 5, and so even sometimes when I'm working with my boys, thinking, how would Pastor Doug have handled this? Because your boys have turned out as solid young men. And so thank you for being that, and just thanks for loving me and investing in me. And I certainly, in my heart, give a ton of credit to who I am and the things that I'm able to do by being under someone who did give me a lot of wins and invested in me and selflessly poured time and energy and frustration and all of those things into helping me be a better man. And so thank you so much for doing that, and thank you for being on our show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony. It's been a great time.
Absolutely. So I want to give you an opportunity to tell our audience how they can learn more about the Bible Nation Society and how they could find you or get a hold of you if they want to read one of your books or if they want to learn more about the organization, give to it, whatever.
Yeah, so Emmanuel Alive with an I. .com is our church website. You can communicate with me there. Sometimes we have event information there. But the Bible Nation Society has a website, BibleNation.org, and we have regular articles on things that's going on. We try to take the Bible and talk about immigration. We take the Bible and talk about corruption in government. And so there's a way to think about these things, a way to handle those. So you can go online and read stuff. I've written 6 books. Getting ready to publish like number 7 and number 8 here in the next few months. And so you can get those books, which I tried to write them not just ministry style, but something that would help all kinds of people in their lives. And so those are there. We felt a need to create MichiganFreeSpeech.com as an event page because we want to protect free speech. We want to be able to say what the Bible says without it becoming illegal or criminal or whatever else, and so that's an important page as well. So if people would just look to those pages, they could get information about us and see what products that we have. We have Facebook pages as well, so you can go to any of those, and then you can get connected in that way. Anything that we put out will come across their paths.
Yeah,
and it's what's great is that now you're really, in a sense, even though it's business, you're ministering to the business community of Shiawassee County and abroad and beyond.
It's part of our vision here.
Yeah, well, honestly, that's an unintended consequence. That's part of the success. I could have never envisioned all that. I can't even say I was practiced that, but you're never a success unless a lot of people want you to be.
Right.
And the unintended consequences are sometimes even better. I call it the residual effects, and they just keep growing the older I get. So I never thought I would be a 30-year man with one idea in one place. And it really wasn't me. The idea was bigger than me. It made me. And so to be able to say, man, I'm 30 years and still going, that's really beyond me. I mean, I can't take credit for that. Have to give glory to God for that.
God is good.
Yep.
God is good. Well, again, we highly recommend Dr. Levesque's books. BibleNation.org has a wealth of information. Look him up. This man is, in my life, the real deal, has been. I have modeled a lot of who I am after him, not because he was my boss or because he was my pastor, but because I seen an authenticity and a realness in him. Was a man who just was surrendered to Christ, gave his life to him, and I thought that's something I can get behind and something I would want to follow. And so thank you for listening to the episode today. If you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, a manager, take the time to get to know yourself, think about your vision, where you're going, learn how to cast that vision and making sure people know it. Surround yourself with good people and give those people and be a selfless leader. And those will be some of the things that will help take your organization to the next level. And most of all, have an excellent spirit. Daniel was preferred even above the secular presidents and princes because that excellent spirit was in him. And I know in my life, I have been some of my secular bosses' most preferred employee. And I have bosses that are unsafe people that would tell me, you were the best employee I ever had. Not because I'm this phenom, I'm just a simple O-Town guy, but because I really try to have that excellent spirit, to be above people and circumstances, and to really try to live a life that was beyond just gaining for myself and really being about helping other people. And so, again, thank you for joining us on the show today. As my mother always said, you can't and never could until you tried. So go out there and try something great, my friends, and don't take the easy way out. We'll see you next time. That's my little sign off.